Hi there, it's January the 30th, and we continue our journey through the good news of Matthew, and we're looking at chapter 20, verses 1 to 28. A lot of the first part of chapter 20 is taken up with the story of the workers in the vineyard and the employer, or the vineyard owner. The story is very simple. The owner of the vineyard takes on various people at various stages during the day, and at the end of the day they come to receive their wages, and he gives the same amount to those he's taken on at the last part of the day as those he took on early in the morning. There's something of a friction goes on here, as those who were taken on earlier say, wait a minute, we've worked longer than these have, surely we deserve more. And the owner of the vineyard says, look, I agreed with you what to pay you. I'm paying them the same because what I have is mine to give, and it's not based on the merit of any one worker, but it's based on my grace, it's based on my desire to give. Perhaps Jesus is trying to make a point here to the disciples that he's telling this to, particularly, that they can't gain favour with God just because they're close to Jesus. And he's also making the point that those who are called last are just as valuable as those who are called first. Matthew is writing as a Jew, remember, to Jews, and it may be that he's also referring to the people of Israel, who are the beloved people of God, the chosen people of God, but they can't expect a monopoly on God's grace. And maybe Jesus is also referring to the fact that those who are being called later, who are not part of Israel, will also receive that grace of God. Whatever we say, we know that God's giving love is based on his total self-giving covenant. His grace, his generosity towards us is not based on our effort and on what we should receive. Often in our society, we reward people who have worked the hardest and the longest and so on. It's not like that with grace. Grace is shown to all equally, and we just need to get used to the fact that God has inexhaustible grace to give to everyone. And particularly as well, when we see those who were last to be hired, it may be that they were the least possible to take on, that they looked the least possible to be working for the ruler. But this means the ruler is including everybody, even the people who are not obvious. He's including everyone, and this is like God the Father, who includes everyone in his grace. Jesus then tells the disciples clearly what's going to happen to him, that he's going to Jerusalem, that he's going to be arrested, he's going to be beaten, he's going to die, and he's going to rise again after 3 days. It's very clear, but the disciples don't get it. Instead, there's an escapade that comes after this, where John and James's mother comes, the wife of Zebedee, and she comes and she appeals, as a classic Jewish mother would, on behalf of her sons, and she wants power for them, she wants position for them, she wants favour for them. And so she asks if in the coming kingdom, when Jesus comes to his kingship, whether they can sit on his right hand and his left hand. Jesus says something interesting. He says, can you drink the cup that I'm given? Can you receive the baptism with which I'm going to be baptized? Now remember that baptism is a being plunged into. So Jesus is going to drink a cup of suffering. And in fact, of course, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's going to say to his Father, let this cup pass from me. So it refers to his suffering on the cross. And also the baptism is a plunging into not just water this time, but into death itself, into the grave itself. And they, of course, the James and John are just macho, and they say, yeah, we can do this, we can be with you. Jesus knows that they don't understand fully what's happening. He knows that they're really in a quest for power, and he says, well, actually, you are going to share in my suffering, but it's not going to be about power, it's not going to be about fame, it's not going to be about fortune. The other disciples are jealous, the other disciples are angry, but Jesus tries to put it clearly to them, look, I have come not to be served, but to serve. I have come, and it's going to be how it is with you. In the world, people lord it over others and they delight in being served, but I have come to serve and to give my life, he says, as a ransom, as a payment to release many. We need to be careful constantly in our lives with God, particularly if we work in any capacity for the church and for others in a paid way. We need to be careful that we do not put ourselves above anyone else. Jesus loves us all the same. God cares for us all the same. And we actually are all called to serve one another as Christ serves us. So we're not talking about power. We need to lay down the power in order to follow Jesus, to be the servant that Jesus is to us and still is to us as he gave his life a ransom for many. Have a very good January 30th.